I've been there. You see a cheap 4-channel NVR on a sale page, think you're saving a bundle, install it, and a week later the footage is either grainy, missing, or the system won't even recognize a newer camera. That regret curve is why I spent a couple of evenings scrolling through forums, watching installation videos, and reading every snippet I could find about the Hikvision embedded plug-play 4K NVR before I even pulled the box out of the box. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The biggest hesitation most buyers feel is the plug-and-play promise. In theory, you just drop the unit into a rack, connect the Ethernet, hook up a few cameras, and you're set. In practice, the reality hinges on a few hidden trade-offs that you don't see on the spec sheet: the way the firmware handles simultaneous streams, how intuitive the web UI really is when you're juggling multiple camera angles, and whether the unit can keep up with the 4K resolution without choking on storage. That's why I wanted to see if this particular Hikvision model actually lives up to the hype, or if it's another cheapish compromise that will make you wish you'd gone a step higher. First off, the hardware itself is an unassuming 1U box that fits neatly into most standard server racks. It's not a massive chassis, which is a plus if you're limited on space, but the compact size also means there's limited internal cooling. In a real-world home or small business setup I tested, the fans stayed quiet for hours on end, but after a full day of recording 8 4K streams, the unit's temperature nudged up into the mid-70 SF. It didn't throttle, but if you plan on running a constant 16-camera 4K load in a hot environment, you might want to add a little extra ventilation. The plug-play claim holds up when you're using Hikvision's own cameras or ones that speak the same ONVIF protocol without any custom firmware quirks. I wired up 12 cameras, a mix of indoor dome units and outdoor bullet cams, and the NVR discovered each one within a few seconds after I entered the IP addresses. The auto-allocation of channels is genuinely convenient. You don't have to manually assign streams unless you want to. However, the moment you bring a third-party brand that uses a slightly different codec profile, the NVR can stumble on the initial handshake, forcing you to dig into the advanced settings and manually set the stream type to H.264 plus or H.265. That extra step isn't a deal-breaker, but it does shave off a bit of that promised no-config simplicity. Now, about the recording side. The device supports MPEG-4, H.264, H.265, and H.264 plus formats, which is a solid spread for compressing 4K footage without blowing up your storage budget. I set the recordings to H.265, the most efficient codec, and was surprised by how much space I saved, roughly 30% less than the same footage captured at H.264. That translates to a longer retention period on a 2 TB drive, which is the standard size that comes with the unit. The catch? H.265 can be a bit demanding on older playback software. When I tried to review the footage on an older Windows 7 machine, the video stuttered unless I upgraded the media player's codec pack. If you plan to rely on very old hardware for playback, you might want to stay with H.264 for smoother viewing. Audio is another area where this NVR shows practical strengths. It has a dedicated audio in and out, meaning you can capture sound from cameras that support two-way audio, and you can even route that audio to an external speaker system for real-time monitoring. In a test where I connected a doorbell camera, the NVR not only recorded the chime but also played it through a small speaker I attached to the audio out, giving me an instant audible cue that someone was at the door. If you don't need audio, that feature sits idle, but it's nice to have the option without buying a separate audio recorder. The user interface is web-based, accessible from any browser on the same network. The dashboard is clean, showing thumbnails of each channel and a timeline for quick playback. The only hiccup I noticed was the lack of a mobile app that feels as responsive as the desktop version. The companion app works, but it lags a bit when scrolling through 4K thumbnails on a phone, especially on older Android models. If you're a power user who wants to monitor footage on the go, you may find the experience a little clunky compared to some competing brands that have invested heavily in native mobile apps. So, who should buy this Hikvision plug-play NVR? If you're setting up a small to medium surveillance system, say a home with a few perimeter cameras, a retail shop that needs to monitor a storefront and a back office, or a boutique office that wants to keep an eye on conference rooms, this unit hits a sweet spot. It gives you the ability to scale up to 16